2, 3. Testing, testing. It's picking me up. All right. Hello and welcome back to the Life in Our 20s podcast. This is officially what I would call season 2. Season 1 was simply a pilot, I would call it. Very vague, very kind of mysterious. I didn't share any of my names or any of my friends' names in the stories. And now that I have the equipment to record multiple people at the same time, I would like to officially state that we have season 2 where I will have guests coming on. I am your host. You can call me Jay from now on. And today I'm here with one of my friends. He is going to introduce himself right now. It's up to him whether or not he wants to share his personal information, so like name or like where he's from. So he might go by a nickname or something else, and that's up to him. So I'll pass it on to him right now.
Yeah, hello. I'm not very, experienced in this, so and I'm not very comfortable saying my name yet. So I'll just go with what Jay is doing, and I'll just go by an alphabetical numeric, whatever. Oh, so just call me K for now.
All right, so he's decided that he's going to be going by K, and in the future, we'll probably use the same nicknames just to address each other. And, guys, I just wanted to say we're finally here. It took a little bit more than half a year to get all the equipment around. And, we're finally here. I can finally have people come on here. I am learning a new DAW, a new recording software. So if it sounds a little scuffed in the audio, that's just me still getting adapted to this new microphone. I'm using the Shure SM58, 2 of them, and I'm using a new recording software that one of my friends actually recommended. And we'll see how it goes from here. I'm still trying to figure out the whole editing process, recording process. So this is actually the first time recording with both the microphone and the new recording software. So without further ado, I'll introduce the topic for today's podcast episode, and that is a nostalgia part 2. I don't know what I will call it officially, but we're just going to go with a nostalgia part 2 for now because we're kind of just doing this on the fly, and we're kind of a little bit on a time crunch, not too much, but it's open to anything nostalgia. And I have my friend here today to help me out. So just anything nostalgia. We might start off with, like, for example, what is nostalgia to us? So, like, what would you say nostalgia is to you?
Well, when I think of nostalgia, I always attribute it as a positive thing. Whatever kind of thing lit a spark in you, made you happy during your younger years. Usually, childhood or whatever. But that's what I usually think of it.
And
it's not the definition of it, but
yeah, I mean, like, I think for everybody, nostalgia is a little bit different. For some people, it might be like a certain feeling that they had in the past. So like, specifically, like, let's say like happiness is the big one that everybody thinks of. But I feel like nostalgia could also be something else as well. For example, for me, one of the things that I find very nostalgic is like the memories of like my first roller coaster ride, and that kind of like sense of like fear while you're on the roller coaster could be considered a feeling of nostalgia, which can be attributed to like joy, but it's like that kind of thrill. So it doesn't have to be like, a one size fit all definition of nostalgia for everyone. And that's why I kind of wanted to do this part 2 and have people be on here. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we can kind of share our nostalgic pasts or nostalgic feelings and kind of, understand what it means, what nostalgia means to other people as well. So is there anything that you would say you find nostalgic that was a big factor like in your life, just something major? I know it's a big question.
Well, first I want to clarify. Sorry if I, seem a bit out there. I took a bump to the head yesterday, and I still don't feel right. So yeah. Okay. Let me
He
think.
might be a little concussed.
Yeah, maybe. Let me think. Well, that is a big question, but first thing that comes to mind is like I love film and filmmaking, so I'd say the first thing that comes to mind ever since forever is the original Spider-Man movies.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the original Star Wars trilogy and the prequels.
I think for me it's less the prequels, or less the original trilogy, more the prequels. And the original Raimi trilogy
Yeah.
is a big part of my childhood. I remember like elementary school wanting to be like Spider-Man, jumping off of a ladder that my dad had set up. I was wearing like Spider-Man pajamas, with the web wings.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, every time I see that film, it just like brings back these kind of butterflies in my stomach, even if it's like a quick clip on YouTube or something. It kind of brings me back to simpler times, and it kind of reminds me of like the magical feeling of like superhero films, because that was something new. Like the earliest form of that I can think of was like uh, the X-Men stuff and Blade. Blade was like the earliest thing.
And if you want to go back further, maybe the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
Yeah. I think that would be more so like in line with like some of my older cousins and stuff. I feel
Yeah.
like they would find that more nostalgic. But for me, it was like you said, like the Spider-Man. It was just so cool to finally see like superheroes in like live action, as opposed to like cartoons, let's say.
That was the textbook definition of a superhero to me for a long time.
Just cartoon superheroes in
No,
general.
I mean
or
the
you
Raimi
mean-
Spider-Man.
okay, yeah. No, that makes sense. And like it also gave us like this kind of like morals to kind of go by. The
Yes,
whole
yeah.
with great power comes great responsibility thing. I found that be really just really cool to live by. And like now when I hear that, it's like super nostalgic, and it makes me feel old when people kind of don't know about the original trilogy, like all these younger kids and stuff. But yeah, it gives me butterflies in the stomach. When they did the re-release of the movies, I went saw almost all of the movies.
Yeah, I saw pretty much all the Raimi stuff, but only one of Andrew stuff. I didn't really see the rest of the Tom Holland movies, since those were the more recent ones.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the Tom Holland ones because they were more recent, but I did go and rewatch the Amazing Spider-Man, and first time actually watching in theaters the first Spider-Man ones, the first trilogy, because I mean I was too young for that. That movie came out when I was born, right? It was 2002. We're 2002 babies here. Dang, and that kind of goes crazy a little bit when you think about it, that like 2002, that was 22 years ago, and you kind of stop and think like, dang, dude, like we're old. When did we graduate high school?
2020.
In 2020. What year is it right now? It's 2024. We're
Oh god.
we're like, it feels like yesterday, but in reality, it's been 4 years.
COVID probably had something to do with that.
COVID had a big thing. That's a good point, actually. I was going to bring up, and some people might hate me for this, but a lot of people have been romanticizing COVID now and calling it like a nostalgia bomb of COVID.
Not for
And
me.
I know that doesn't make sense to some people because, there are people dying, and like the world was kind of falling apart for a little bit. But there was like this big sense, like this strong sense of like community online. And I remember everybody was on Discord. I think, I don't know if you remember like with the whole Among Us thing
Yeah.
that happened. Like I remember like we played online a couple times as soon as they dropped it on like on mobile, so that way we could all connect. But like the COVID stuff is like really nostalgic to me too for some reason, because like instead of seeing these kind of like fake materialistic kind of like influencer type of perspectives on the world, it was more day-to-day life stuff, and it was people going through a similar situation, so it was easier to relate to them whenever you would see them online. So like anybody that's going through COVID stuff and they're like, oh dude, I can't find toilet paper, in stores, like all the food is running out, and like I can't go to work because it's not like a necessary job, like like working the ER or something, like you know it kind of felt like it was easier to connect with these people, and like it kind of brought us all closer a little bit because we were all going through the same thing, and people are romanticizing that. And I don't know what your perspective is on this. Do you think that like COVID should be like the subject of like nostalgic thought?
Well, the first 2 years of COVID for me are just were just a complete blur. Honestly, you might as well mush all that time together. And to be honest, I'd rather uh it was. I find it a bit strange for other people to have nostalgia for it, since for me personally, it was pretty terrible.
I mean, uh, everybody has their different perspectives,
Yeah,
and people
yeah,
went through different things. And like for me, I'd say that it was pretty easy to go through because I had a lot of time on my hands, and the majority of the time I was just uh, reading or like attending class online because I was still in college. And whenever I wasn't doing that, I was just playing video games or working out because everybody was doing that whole like oh, get your COVID shredded body. And I was like, oh dude, like when COVID is over and like like the summer comes around, summer body, like and then yeah, that didn't really work out.
yeah.
But I feel like that was a pretty fun time, but very like tough time at the same time. uh there's just a lot of factors that go into that, and I don't know, like a lot of people kind of reminisce on it now because like especially I feel like the shut-ins, like
Yeah.
the people that are a little bit more introverted, kind of feel like that was like their time to shine. Everybody was dealing with like the whole like, oh, like I have nobody to socialize with. But for like the kind of shut-ins, um they're kind of like, this is my jam, like I'm not forced to go outside anymore. Like, okay, let me just stick inside and like not do anything. That's like what I'm good at. And I know a lot of people that just loved that era. But let's like try to go back a little bit more, and let's go back a little bit and see what we find nostalgic. Like, I follow a lot of these nostalgic pages on Threads, and yes, I stand by Threads, and everybody's gonna trash on me because I don't really use Twitter. I do use it occasionally, but I prefer Threads because there's less people talking mad shit there, and like just everybody seems like a scumbag on Twitter nowadays.
And there's a lot less porn bots on there.
Dude, there's so much on there. Um, but I follow these kind of like nostalgic pages on Threads, also on Instagram, but less so on Instagram, and like just seeing the old school designs and stuff of like buildings and like restaurants, it just kind of brings back this it brings back this kind of feeling of like warmth in my heart, of like these were simpler times. Like I remember things being cheaper. Like yes, like especially like with our generation, we went through a recession in 2007 2008, the housing crisis stuff. But like I remember things being a little bit cheaper, like in the 2010s maybe ish, uh less responsibilities, and just less kind of fighting in the world. I feel like it was probably still around, and it most likely was, but we were just kind of blind to it because we're so young. We didn't understand things yet. Um, but one of the things that makes me nostalgic, that makes me feel old, and now it kind of makes me understand like older, like kind of like Gen X and like the millennials as well. Not so much boomers. I don't know much about like what they grew up with, but um, for example, with like the millennials and like the Gen X and stuff, when they talk about like cassette tapes and like using the radio and like VHS and all this. Like we still grew up with some of that. Like we still grew up with some of the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
And when I talk to like my little cousins or like friends of family, and they're like, "What's a VHS?" Like, dude, that just hurts my heart. Like, it hits me hard. Like, how do you not know what a VHS is? What a DVD is? They're like, you don't just stream it on Disney Plus. And I'm like, dude, those nostalgic feelings kind of hurt sometimes because like you don't have somebody to relate to it. Uh, so like that's why like I like having friendships that are kind of around my age because we have all been through similar things and it's easier to relate to each other. And that's kind of like a hard thing to do as an adult now because your friendships aren't categorized by age anymore. Like school, like you remember school, like everybody was around the same age. Everybody went through the same thing. And now as an adult, it's like, oh yeah, like I work with Tyler and Tyler's like 37. He doesn't remember any of the stuff that I'm talking about. And I don't remember what the heck he's talking about. So like, I don't know, like that's why like nostalgia's like strange to me because like only certain groups understand what you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like only certain groups know what you're talking about. And other groups are just completely blind. Like if you were to say something like that you find nostalgic to like your grandparents, would they understand? Or like to your parents?
Probably not.
Do you like or like any of your younger siblings? I feel like your siblings are probably like around same age ish still. Like, but like are there things that maybe you guys don't really connect with, like maybe collide on a little bit?
Only thing I can't think of something that I can collide with my siblings is my youngest brother, since well, he's the youngest, obviously. So he hasn't really grown up with any of the stuff I talk about or bring up. But my other two siblings, they're not that much younger than me, so they know what VHS and DVDs are and stuff like that. So I can still converse with them on that kind of stuff. But with regards to my youngest brother, I find it a bit less strange, but a little bit more amusing that I can explain all this stuff to him. You know, yeah. What was the question again? You said
Is there anything that you sort of like collide on with like your siblings, like nostalgia wise, or like memories that you would think that you would share with your siblings, but then you kind of go, oh dang, I'm like 10 years older than them or whatever, and then you just kind of go, yeah, they didn't grow up with that.
honestly, no, not that much. Even with my youngest brother, I mean, he still sees all this. We still have all our old stuff around the
Yeah.
house, so I mean, like, it's not like he doesn't know exactly what it is.
I think that's a big one though. Like if you still have the stuff around and you introduce them to it, like you're kind of introducing them to your nostalgia, and then it becomes nostalgic to them in the future.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And I think that's like something important because like
Absolutely, yeah.
a lot of these things are kind of dying off, like the VHS and like DVDs. You just don't see it that often anymore. And like having it around is kind of like a little bit of a time capsule. I think that's why a lot of people romanticize the like nostalgic feeling of like the past, because it is kind of like a window into the past, and you sharing kind of like your nostalgic like ideas and feelings with other people is literally just showing them what life was like back then.
Yes, yeah.
And one of the topics that I wanted to bring in, that I'm not sure if you had this at all, but like we're kind of the last generation really that grew up without phones. Like my little brother, my youngest brother, he's still the same generation as us, I think, and I'm like 10 years older than, like he's on the very end half of like Gen Z, borderline like Gen Alpha or whatever next one comes after us. And like he's growing up with a bunch of technology. Like he was able to like use the phone like when he was little and everything, and like I never had a phone as a kid. I always wanted like what's the most like high tech thing that you had as a kid?
Uh, Probably my game console.
Like honestly, like video games, maybe if you got lucky, like an iPod, but even then like it wasn't really a phone. Your DS, if you had a DS, I
I had
know
a
that
Game Boy.
that falls under game console, right? But that's like portable, so I think that's a little bit more addicting. But like all these kids nowadays are so addicted to like their phones and stuff, and it just kind of like, I'm like, dude, like, what happened to the days when you would like go outside and play? Like, and like I remember like riding my bike and my skateboard, eating shit all the time, like just face on the concrete, like, but like, it builds character, if you know what I mean. And these kids, like, I don't know, like a lot of people call them snowflakes and stuff, and I'm like, nah, dude, it's not that. It's just like, they're growing up in different times, and like they're gonna find different things nostalgic when you compare them to us. But it's still kind of sad that you don't see that interaction anymore. Everything's like on screens now, and it's sad that people don't interact the same way that they used to. And I just want to bring that up because I don't know if you also grew up like, going outside and like having fun, like, in the yard or like maybe with your neighbors and stuff. I had a couple neighbors that would play like, I'm still super into Yu-Gi-Oh, but I was super into Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid and would play like that. They tried to teach me how to wheelie on my bike, ate shit all the time, like, um, sometimes I'd go. We live next to a cul-de-sac, so I'd go over to my friend's house over there, light shit on fire, get in trouble, like, that type of stuff. Like, just like, just arson, like, at the age of like 7 or whatever. But like you don't see kids like going out and doing that anymore.
Glad you brought that up because yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, uh, usually when I would hang out with friends or I have a lot of I also have a lot of cousins around my neighborhood, so whenever we would hang out, yeah, it was almost always outside, never inside the car or like inside the house or whatever. Uh, and and yeah, it's kind of a bummer that we don't really see that anymore. Since I played a lot of sports with my cousins and friends, and sure, I was never good at it, but but just being around them was pretty fun. Even though I got hit in the balls by soccer ball by like four times, 5 times.
I mean, it's just those like moments when you can bond over something. Um, so like for me, maybe not so much sports, but like we would just make up our own games on the fly. Um, and like I feel like 10, 15 years from now, kids are going to be like, older, and they're going to be like, "Oh man, you remember when we were kids and like we used to play Roblox all the time, or like,
Yeah,
like you remember that TikTok trend and this and that, or who knows if TikTok's even going to be around or YouTube's going to be around. They're going to be like, "Oh, you remember when TikTok was a thing? Oh my gosh." Like, that's kind of like us. I don't know about you, but for me, I always go like, "Oh man, you remember when Blockbuster was a thing, or when Netflix used to mail out the DVDs to your house?" And people go, "What what's Blockbuster? When did Netflix do that?" And like, it just makes me feel a little old, but nostalgic at the same time. And it kind of makes me want to go after those things. So like, I told you in the past, and I've done it with my siblings before, but we try to do this kind of like movie night thing where we kind of try to put ourselves in the shoes of like, like for example, 10-year-old me, and like, for example, uh, whatever age my brother was at that time. I think I'm like, he would have been like 7 or something. He would have been like 7, right? So we go to like stores and try to look for like DVDs or something. I'm trying to change that to like do like maybe Goodwill now and look for VHSs too, because those are just dying off very rapidly. But we'll go and like try to find like a cool movie that we've never seen, or a movie that we like really connected with as children, and then just bring it home, watch it, talk about it, reminisce over the past. And I know a lot of people say like don't live in the past and stuff, but it's cool to have those little breaks from reality for a little bit. Kind of pretend like you're in a little like a time capsule. Pretend like you're in a different era for a little bit. I feel like that's really fun to do. Um, I know you probably do this as well. Either with like movies or TV shows or like any media in general. It could also just be music. I feel like music is a big thing when it comes to nostalgia. Like what honestly, like what type of music do you listen to?
mostly rock and rap.
And why do you listen to it?
I got into rap first, so and and I mainly listen to rap still because yeah, it was it mainly as a kid I loved the music videos on YouTube. So usually I would check out the rap ones because I those were the ones I found the most appealing. So yeah, that's mainly why I still listen to it. And rock, I mainly got it during middle school and high school, and it just really spoke to me. And since I was still a kid then, it still connects with that little 14-year-old. It's still.
And like you say, like the reason why I listen to a lot of the music that I listen to is because I just remember it from the past, and sometimes I'll have like a song pop up in my head. I'm like, man, what was that song called? Like I know the lyrics, but I don't know what the song is called. Who sang the song? And I feel like music is another big thing of like nostalgia, where it just kind of like is this little time capsule. Like you cannot sit there and say that if I play for example, Safe and Sound. You know Safe and Sound? Like if I play that,
I know two safe and sounds.
are you not going to feel nostalgic?
Yeah, I probably will.
Like I feel like that is one of the most nostalgic like heavy songs. Like what else would be like a super nostalgic oh my gosh. I just thought of one, but like geez, we're about to hear it in a month cuz everybody starts playing this so soon. But like
What?
I mean, you could try to guess.
I was gonna say Mariah Carey.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say.
wait, you were talking about that? Oh,
yeah, I was gonna talk about the Christmas song.
I was
yeah.
gonna say it's still a few months before Christmas, but like,
dude, people start playing that so soon, dude.
oh yeah,
They're like, it was like June or something, and they already had Halloween stuff in stores. Like, dude, it's August right now. They're gonna start playing that like in a month.
yeah.
To be honest, but that's like one of those other nostalgic things. Like when you go into a store and you just hear the Mariah Carey, and then you're just like, oh, geez, this reminds me of when I was 9, because they always play the same goddamn song every year on repeat. Like I remember, like also nostalgic, and it's gone now because they messed it up. But Sears, I went to Sears during like Black Friday, and they were playing it. Like it was November, so that makes sense, but we were there for so long that I heard it repeat like 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, this is making me feel a certain way because A, I'm being bombarded by all these people. B, the song is on repeat. So it feels like I'm like in purgatory here. And then C, it's just a song from my childhood. I would hear every single time I would go like Target or whatever back in the past. Maybe even like what are some Kmart. Does anybody remember Kmart anymore? Do you remember Kmart?
I remember Kmart. I remember not going that much, but I still remember it.
Dude, my parents used to take me there all the time. That's a super nostalgic thing. And you know what the sad part is? There's one near us. I might bleep this, but there's one in
Yeah.
and
Don't
I might
use
bleep
that to track us down.
I might bleep that out later. They probably don't know what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But there's one over there, and it's like it's been shut down forever, right? The Kmart. And sometimes on my way to school when I was still in college, I would drive by there and I'd be like, dang, that's so sad. And then right across from it, there's a 99-cent store. And I'm like, at least the 99-cent store there, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
And then
Lo and behold, all the 99-cent stores closed. So like, I feel like we're slowly losing pieces of our childhood. Like, like I wouldn't be surprised if like tomorrow just Walmart dies and we're like, dude, remember when we used to go to Walmart? Remember when they were 24/7? Remember when they had the fish tanks? Like there's so much stuff that just kind of like can be part of a nostalgia that just kind of it just brings out that feeling, like, I don't know. I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I just want to kind of ask you, like, what nostalgic feelings do you have now that you kind of go, why do I keep thinking that? Like it's in the back of your head all the time. Because I know everybody has like that one thing that's like nostalgic to them, and it's always irking them, and it's always there.
you said I could take a minute, right?
Yeah, you could take a minute to formulate your thoughts.
All right. Well, for me, I'd say it's not just one thing. It's like multitudes of things. It's not
Could be multiple. Go over like top 5 or something, whatever you want to do.
top 5.
Yeah. There's no real structure to this podcast. I think everybody knows that already. So we just, whatever you want, as long as it's like a subcategory of nostalgia.
Okay, well, part of the reason why I miss all the old, well, since you already talked about it, I do really miss a lot of the old infrastructure we used to have around here. I mean, I'm fine with things changing eventually, but the reason why it's a problem now is because it's not a issue of stuff just rebuilding and getting something else. You know, most of the places he's listing like Kmart and all that are just going out of business
Yeah.
because of how fucked up the economy is right now.
You want to know a big one? Like one of the big issues with that? Amazon.
Probably.
And I think this is part of the reason why I don't share my
Billionaires.
this is why I don't share my identity. My friends know about this podcast, but I don't want anybody else to kind of figure out who I am. But I currently work at Amazon. It's like very convenient. I use it all the time. I hate that I use it all the time because it's putting all these like shops out of business and stuff. My childhood, it's all
Yes.
going out of business. I miss a lot of these places. A lot of mom and pop shops that you would go to like get very niche like knickknacks or like equipment or stuff that like not everybody carries, like stuff that would be kind of weird to see at Walmart or Target or whatever. Like they're shutting down because Amazon just offers so much stuff, like just so much stuff. And at the same time, like I can't hate on it too much because like it let me live some of my nostalgia, because I remember a lot of people having what are those things called, the digital pets, what were they called, the Tamagotchis,
Yeah, I think so.
right? And I always wanted one, and as an adult I'm like, god, that's so stupid. Like all you do is feed it, clean up after it. Like what does it do, right? And then I discovered Digimon, right? And I was like, wait, they had like actual like little virtual pet Digimons that you can carry around on a keychain, and I bought 3 of them. I bought one for me, one for my one of my brothers, and one for my youngest brother. The middle one doesn't use it that much. The youngest one takes it to school. He loves it. He uses it kind of like as a watch because they're banning phones now. And I use it occasionally. And god damn it, am I addicted to that whenever like I'll like I'm very ADHD, as a lot of you can probably tell. And I will have these like bouts of like Digimon or like YouTube, Yu-Gi-Oh. There's one time I got into like crochet or like sewing and stuff like that. I got into this podcast stuff, but now I'm in too deep with all this audio equipment I got. So now this is like a forever thing. Uh, but Jesus Christ, dude, like a lot of the stuff that I find like nostalgic, I'll just buy on Amazon, and I'm like, dang, I never had this as a kid. I was so jealous of the kids when they had this.
Yes, yeah.
And then I just go, I have money, and I'm like, it's probably a poor financial decision. Buy it. Just buy it instantly. Like me and Kay over here, we know about this guy that has a game shop that's also a card shop. And I know like our one of our friends, you know which one I'm talking about. I'll bleep out his name. You know about, and I bleeped it. Pretend I bleeped it. Um like we will go to this card shop and we will blow so much money out on that friend in particular. Um and I remember spending maybe like $80 on used games, and then maybe like another maybe like 20 to 40 on like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff, just because I was like, oh, I got money, why not? And then later you kind of feel it's a bad financial decision, but I'm like, dude, I want to relive my childhood a little bit. Those pieces of me that I'm losing, I got to relive it. And I know for a fact you have those instances too, where it's
Yeah.
kind of like you're like, dude, I have money, I shouldn't, but I'm gonna do it because it's like my childhood.
Yeah, I don't even want to think of how much money I blew over on the stuff I like. But yeah, it's let's just say I'm regretting it a bit now.
Let me guess, one of the big ones, comics.
Yeah, yeah. Since I mentioned before, Spider-Man and all that, but I've always been a huge superhero anything fan, and I kind of missed out on while I still like watched the cartoons and movies and stuff. I missed out a lot on the comic side of things. You would usually either have to pirate them, or when I did get them, it was always a special occasion, since just not a lot of comic shops near out here. So when I finally got my own money, I went a little overboard with it.
Yeah,
Same thing with my games.
it happens to all of us, man. I always wanted a camera when I was little. I was like, dang, like I had cousins. My aunt was really into photography. I was like, dude, I'm gonna get myself a camera one day. And I just went out, saw it on OfferUp. I was like, dang, that's like half my bank account. I probably shouldn't do this, and I did it, and I bought it. It was $300, and yeah, I know. Oh, that's half your bank account, dude. I didn't work. I was in college, and like that was whatever I had saved from when I was working at Target, and I'm like, dude, dang, dude, I probably shouldn't have done that, but it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Kind of a side note, but also important to the podcast. I have a YouTube channel for the podcast. I'm saying this to Kay. A lot of you listening probably already know that. But I've been using the camera to try to film some content for that. It's a little uncomfortable because it doesn't have a flip out screen, and I kind of have to like guesstimate things and like do multiple takes. But like it helps me live part of like my childhood. I always wanted to be a content creator.
Yeah,
in, like middle school. Everybody wanted to be a YouTuber.
Yeah, we've been trying to explore this one tunnel area, but it just hasn't fallen through yet.
Oh, that's a story for another day.
And I'm glad you brought up the video thing, because another thing I kind of wish I didn't miss out on was just recording childhood memories in general.
Oh,
I mean you brought up since you brought up the camera thing, you know all those movies that have those montages.
Dude, don't even bring that.
That have
up,
those
dude.
montages of people recording stuff when they're kids or whatever. I really wish we did that, but
it's the cliche. It's the stereotype of the what is it? Middle class white dad with the camcorder that records your Christmas, your birthday, all that. I think my parents might have some of those like on VHS tapes, like those old camcorders. I don't know if my dad still has it. But I was like, dang, dude, like we're the last generation that has all of our stuff recorded, but not on social media.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these parents will like record it and they just dump it on their social media. And it's like, oh, look, it was, for example, it was Ricky's 3rd birthday or whatever. And for us, it was like more intimate because we didn't share it with the rest of the world. Like, yeah, it's a little bit easier to share now. So like my grandparents are in Mexico, so we could just film something, record it, and then just dump it on social media, and they'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
So that's the cool part, right? But like when your account is like public, which a lot of people do now because they want to see more followers, more numbers, it kind of gets a little bit out of hand, and it's like, oh, like everybody's like trashing on your kid or something. I'm like, no, this is like intimate, private moments that you want to keep recorded for yourself. Like in the future when they grow up, like your kids grow up, show them and be like, yeah, that was you, and like it kind of like it brings out those like hidden memories from like when you were a child. And I stand by this. Everybody should own a camera, not like, oh, like I have my phone. Like buy a camera, because it like changes the way that you like record stuff. Specifically, if you can buy a camcorder, I recommend buying a camcorder, because that is like the most nostalgic thing that you can do, is like record stuff and see it like in the old kind of a little bit grainy format. And like a lot of these older camcorders, and I say older now because these were like 2015, but how long ago was 2015 now? Right, that was like 9 years ago.
Oof, yeah,
that's not. That one hurt. 2015 was 9 years ago.
Like I said, these past, not just the past, not even just the first 2 years ago, but these 4 years in general have been kind of a blur. So acknowledging that like 2015 was like almost 10 years ago is kind of hard. Another thing, since you brought up feeling old regarding nostalgic stuff, people find old now. It was a bit back in like, hold on, what 2010 is. It was a bit harder to. It was a bit, I mean, easier to accept that the 90s was just 10 or 20 years ago. Now that you think about it, now it's been 40 years since the 80s, 30 years since the 90s, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about if you're a Gen Zer.
It's man, yeah, because like
it was always something more recent in your mind, but now. Yeah, now it's something. Now it's
man, because I remember like my parents watching like 80s action films,
yes.
like for like Sylvester Stallone. There was Arnie. What's his name? Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren. Yeah.
Yeah. Who else? Van Damme.
Yeah. Claude Van Damme. I think his name is,
even like, who else would be fit in there? Like Kurt Russell.
Yes, I was gonna mention him.
Like dang, like all these like 80s action stars and stuff, and like I remember like watching all these as a kid and being like, dang, these are so cool. And like I'm thinking, what is the equivalent of that to like the generation now, like the newer generation.
I'd say we don't really have
I
we don't really have
don't
these
think we have that many
iconic
cool,
action stars now.
like no, there's like, what happened to the Predator being like a blockbuster film or whatever, like Rambo and stuff like that. I'm trying to think, like Bloodsport, Van Damme, like, you know, I'm starting to show my age a little bit. But like, I think for them it's just like the Marvel stuff is, or like comic book movies are like the only action kind of thing that they have.
I'd say the closest thing we can get to is Alan Richmond. Go watch Reacher, please.
Oh, Reacher's awesome.
Yeah.
But like, God, everything moves so fast, and like it feels like we're a little bit behind, because I remember these things and I talk about them, and even some of, like, for example, like some of my coworkers at work will go like, how do you know about all this? And I'm like
oh sorry.
well, you go ahead.
You'll beep that out, right?
Yeah, I could bleep it out.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say the initial L.
Mhm.
Our friend L. Which is what I'm gonna call him. All right, he also has those experiences where people he'll get caught listening to a certain song, and people will say, "How do you know about that song? You don't seem to be around from there."
Jeez, where could I go with this? Like, I'll talk about movies that I saw as a child, and then like my coworkers will go, "Man, how old are you? You don't seem that old." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm 22." They're like, No, that doesn't make sense. You'd have to be like 30, 40 to have known about these things, right? Like 50." And I'm like, "Well, because my parents introduced me to that." And I'm thinking that's like our job now, as like, except for me, I'm not gonna have kids, but as like the like Gen Z, we have to like kind of introduce our kids in the future to these things that we knew in the past, so it's not lost in the past. Imagine like your kids grow up and they don't know who Rambo was. I feel like you would have failed as a parent, especially as a dad there. Like, what's your problem? How does he not know who the Italian Stallion is? Like come on. And
Or RoboCop.
the other thing is like you were saying with like the music with bleep it out. Like, I'll listen to music and then my parents go, how do you know about that song? I'm like, "You guys used to play it when I was little." And they're like, "But you were like little." And I'm like, "Yeah." And like I'll show these like reels on Instagram that are like animated with like cute little characters, and like, you know, put the song behind it, and I'll show it to my parents, and they're like, "Oh man, I remember those songs. Those are like, you know, old. Your grandparents listened to that." And I'm like, "Dang, that's how old that is." And they're like, "How do you know about it?" I'm like, "You played it for me." Like, you know, so I feel like a big part of nostalgia also is like passing on that torch of like nostalgia. So like for me, like, it was like Spider-Man and stuff was super nostalgic, like comic book movies. If I were ever to have kids, that's the first thing I'm putting them on. Like, you know, it's like, screw all this Coco Melon stuff. You're watching the whole Raimi trilogy. Like, you know, just straight, like, you're gonna raw dog it. You're just gonna watch all three of them. No phone, no nothing. Like, you know, I'll give you some popcorn, some snacks. You want me to cook you something? I'll cook you some, but watch all of them just straight. It's just like an experience, you know? And it's something that you can't get from like the media nowadays. It's just like this magical feeling. I feel like they might think it's like dated or something by those standards. Like, you know, it might not hold up as well in the future. I still feel it holds up pretty well now, but in the future, who knows? It might not hold up that well. And like, just put them on these things, like, you know, make them watch these things, because it kind of makes them appreciate that era of time too, because I'll appreciate stuff that my parents like introduced me to,
And how they might influence stuff now.
exactly. There's a lot of stuff that we watch now, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I took inspiration from this movie and that movie," and everybody's like, "What movie is that?" "Oh, you don't know because it came out in the 70s, it came out in the 60s." Like, you know, like a lot of like the newer stuff, like let's say, like, for example, like when we watched the Batman with Robert Pattinson, what would you say they took inspiration from?
Absolutely, stuff from The Long Halloween, and let me think. Well, are you just talking in terms of comics or just
Comics, other films, like in like the cinematography or stuff like that, like like a lot of like the old school like noir films, I feel like were probably used as inspiration. And that's kind of like one of those like things where it's like, if we don't teach the future generations about this, they can't use it as inspiration, and then they have to like rediscover it.
Yeah.
But if we teach them now, they can use that to make more stuff in the future, and just like, you know, kind of tweak it a little bit, maybe make like other subgenres and stuff and like make their own stuff with it. And I feel like that's interesting. Like a good example of this is like the metal genre, like music. Dude, that stuff has so many subgenres that like tweak different things and change other things. I'm like, dude, that is something that like happens with everything, but it's like most evident with metal, because they kind of keep the name where it's like, oh, this heavy metal, this is speed metal, this is like what would be another one?
You said death metal already?
There's death metal, there's black metal, which we don't really talk about too much. But there's like, it keeps the metal moniker, right? But like with a lot of like different like movies and like other like media, they don't keep the name, they create another name for it, right? So like if like for example, like when we think about metal, would you say that it originated from rock?
I'd say so. I
Right,
mean,
like,
I'm not. Please don't come for me. I'm not an
yeah,
expert on
don't
this.
don't
But
don't come for us, we're not experts. But like if for example, if we say like rock and then it becomes metal in the future, right? It doesn't keep the name, so it's kind of hard to piece it together. But metal is like a family tree. Like it has like
yeah,
everything listed out, and you can kind of put it together, And I feel like that's something that is hard to do with like other media and like genres and stuff. And you have to kind of like introduce people to it and kind of explain, hey, like this thing inspired this thing, and then this inspired this other thing, and you can kind of see how it like changes over time slightly. And that kind of it's kind of like nostalgic to us, but then to the person like seeing it like for the first time, they're like, oh, this is actually really interesting. And then it kind of like stays in their mind, becomes nostalgic to them. They use it for inspiration for other stuff.
yeah.
Like, it's like, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is seeing how the stuff I like, in regards to movies and shows, I like seeing what inspired that beforehand. I remember going down a bit of a rabbit hole regarding the old Star Wars movies, where George Lucas very obviously took cues from old World War II movies that he loved, samurai movies,
Yep.
previous sci-fi stuff before that, like what's it called, Flash Gordon.
Oh, Flash Gordon.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of my favorite hobbies to do in regards to media is seeing all the stuff that it would later influence and what influenced before that. Like you mentioned, the Batman. What cues did that take from? Obviously, it took cues from Chinatown, Seven,
Yep.
and what's the other one that he Zodiac? Yeah, Zodiac.
Oh, Zodiac, dude.
Yeah, which is was a dream which was a dream come true for me, since I love old school noir movies, uh, and 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 just combining all that with the Batman character is just cool to me. So that was dream. I'd say the movie lived up to my expectations at least.
I think it was pretty good, to be honest. And I don't know, like just this kind of like nostalgia and like inspiration stuff is like just really interesting to kind of think about and kind of just sit on for a little bit, like and just like take it in for a little bit, because it's like these generations kind of blending together. And I don't know, like especially like now in these times when like everybody's like so divided on everything, I feel like we need more of those like films that kind of blend generations together and takes a little bit from like this generation and that generation, puts it together where it's like everybody can be a little bit happy watching it. Like it's not gonna make everybody happy, but like everybody can like see where the influences came from and can kind of go, yeah, like this reminds me of this one movie I saw as a child, and like that. I feel like that's why like when everybody says everybody, like when people say everyone's a critic now, it's like everybody has like a certain set of like ideas and like perspectives that they want things to align with. And since everybody's like so divided now, nobody can agree or like compromise. They kind of trash on whatever they don't agree with.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we took stuff from other generations, blended it together, people would be a little bit less divided, and everybody would be nostalgic. Which, like honestly, I feel like it's an awesome feeling. Like if everybody could feel nostalgia at the same time, I feel like everybody would just kind of be like, dude, dang.
It would also give us an opportunity to bond more.
Honestly, yeah, I feel like these generations are just so divided. We need to bond a little bit more.
Yeah.
We need something to bond us together, but it's just hard.
Yeah, my other brother is a lot. I like introducing him to a lot of the stuff I grew up on. That's a little few years before his time, but not too much. Like he mainly grew up on the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, but I introduced him into the Spectacular Spider-Man
Spectacular Spider-Man.
and
That's
the
the best one.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
90s
exactly.
Spider-Man?
And the '90s Spider-Man too.
Yes.
Yeah. And another thing, I'm glad I'm able to be nostalgic about stuff before my time. Also, like you mentioned, the '90s
Yes.
Spider-Man animated show, the original Transformers show, the original Power Rangers show.
Oh,
And
dude, Power Rangers the big one, dude.
Yeah.
Because like everybody goes like, oh, you don't like you weren't born back then. Like you were born in 2002. How do you know about the Power Rangers stuff? I'm like, because I watched like the later ones, and then I went back and watched like the older ones, like like '90s, like Mighty Morphing, Zeo, Turbo, and Space, all those, and like started watching all those, and like they feel so nostalgic to watch, even though I didn't watch them when they came out.
yeah,
And like I feel like I bond with people a lot whenever there's stuff like that, because they're like, oh, how do you know about this? I'm like, oh, like I like the newer stuff, but I went back and watched the older stuff. I feel like a lot of people don't do that. They just start with the newer stuff and they just keep running forward. They don't take time to like sift through the older stuff and kind of see what interests them. And I feel like everybody's just thinking like move forward.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what else could I watch that's new? I'm like, no, like maybe take a break and watch a little bit of the older stuff, like before like things got rebooted, or like like the stuff that might be a little bit dated, but like is a fun watch still. And I don't know, like people just need to like relax a little bit and just kind of like take it in, because a lot of the stuff is still in front of us, but we just miss it because we're not actively looking at it. We're thinking about like what's coming next instead of what's already came before.
What was I gonna mention? All right, give me a minute.
I think we're almost at an hour recording.
You sure?
It's like 52 minutes, I think.
That's seems shorter than that.
Again, this is like the first time that I use the this recording software, so I think that number right there is like how long we've been recording, because this other one is like massively large, and I think that's like beats or whatever, because this software is like mainly for music, but I'm using it for audio, like vocals.
Yeah.
But yeah, like almost an hour, but some of it's gonna be cut out, and it doesn't matter if it's a longer episode. People like longer episodes, I think. I don't know. I don't have the data on that yet. So yeah, we can still go on for a little bit.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
And what was I gonna say?
You were thinking about something.
Fuck.
We had just left off on like Power Rangers and like looking into the past a little bit and kind of looking at what came before us, then instead of like looking at what's coming next, because everybody's kind of like, oh, what comes after this, and like this movie, and like when are they gonna bring out another movie in this series? Like it's like, no, go back a little bit and like look at the older stuff,
Yeah.
and see what came before that. Like enjoy the old stuff. You might be surprised by what you can find out there that's like still holds up and is still pretty fun.
All right, let me think. Yeah, well, with everything going on in the country and stuff, I feel like part of the reason why we even go back on this stuff and talk about it a lot is because we just want some form of escapism, even if that's from the past. Which, I know there's this whole argument of, nostalgia can be a bad thing, or that living in the past will affects the present. Which, that part can be true. Living in the past will fuck up your present.
Yeah.
But it's not bad to appreciate it at least.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, thank God for reruns and DVDs.
Honestly, yeah. I think one of the big reasons we look to the past so much is because we're so uncertain of the future.
Yeah.
And we have all of this stuff like at our disposal. Like, maybe the past generations wanted to look back at like the things that they enjoyed too, but they didn't have a way to do that. And like we're one of the first generations that's able to do that. Like millennials did this a lot too, where they would look back at like the stuff that they grew up with and kind of go like, dang, like things were better back then. Like right now it's kind of tough, and it's like I don't know where I'm going in the future. Like what's going to happen in a couple years? Where am I going to be 10 years from now? And I feel like it's just a quick little escape from reality, and it's just fun to reminisce on the past. And I know I mentioned this in the previous nostalgia episode that honestly I kind of think that episode wasn't up to par with like what I wanted to do with this podcast, but I mentioned slightly that like it's kind of dangerous to live in the past. You really shouldn't live in the past.
Yeah.
But like it's necessary to look back every once in a while just to like, kind of reset yourself and kind of see what you used to enjoy and like why maybe you stopped enjoying those things. Um like maybe what would you say? Like why did you stop enjoying these things? Is there something that changed inside of you, maybe like your personality, maybe, or something like that? uh and just kind of like recenter yourself a little bit. It's kind of like when you like go and like walk out to the park or something and just kind of like sit with your thoughts. It's like the same thing except you're enjoying the process as well as like looking at all this stuff from your past. I don't know how to explain it. Nostalgia is a hard thing for me. Um, it's a little hard for me to explain what nostalgia is. I don't feel like I had the best childhood, but I had a really good childhood. Like there's a lot of stuff that I wish I did and stuff that I wish I had, but I'm happy with what I got. Like it was pretty good, and I feel like it's a little hard for me to define nostalgia because like a lot of my childhood was like consumed a little bit by like hardship, with like the family being a little bit less fortunate like financially. A lot of stuff going on in school where like I got picked on, or like um I didn't really fit in with everybody else, or I tried to be somebody that I really wasn't. So like it blurs a little bit, and I feel like a lot of my memories are kind of repressed a little bit, like my nostalgic stuff. Sometimes there's like shows that I'm like, dude, what the heck was that thing called? And then like years later, I'll like find it and be like, oh, that's what it's called. And it's just because like, and I think somebody said this where it's like, um, I saw it somewhere where they, it's probably like one of those deep dive YouTube videos or something about like your psychology and stuff.
I
Or
love
whatever.
playing those in the background.
I love. I play them before going to bed. I put on
Yeah.
like an hour one, put the timer on my TV, and then I just like fall asleep listening to it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's an interesting fact. But like stress and anxiety apparently can cause like memory loss or like repressed memories. And I'm like, dang, dude, is that what's going on with like my my brain? Because like there's times when I'm like, dude, how do I forget this stuff? Like I'll forget my own birthday, dude. Like it gets crazy. My little brother was like, how old are mom and dad? I never really thought about that. I'm like, dude, are you stupid? They're they're oh shit, do the math, dude. And I'm like dude, how do I forget that? Like, it's just like everything I just, it kind of goes over the top of my head, goes in one ear, goes out the other. And it's just because like, the stress and anxiety and stuff. And I'm glad that we can like still enjoy stuff from the past, like nostalgia, because it also kind of keeps you in check a little bit. It makes sure that you're not like, fucking, you don't have what's it called, fucking dementia or something, and like memory loss. Like the day that I can't remember, like for example, like Ben 10, like just shoot me. It's not worth living if I can't look
Yeah.
back at the times when I used to watch Ben 10 and stuff. Like just shoot me in the head, get rid of me, dude. Like it's not worth living. Joking, of course. Please don't cancel me. um but yeah, I mean, like it's just a tough thing for me to define, and like especially to like remember the things that I find nostalgic. And sometimes I'll be like at work or like doing something around the house, and it'll pop up in my head. I'm like, oh, write that down, and I'll write it down like in my notes so that I have it for future reference. And I feel like that is also maybe a little bit dangerous, because it's okay for you to forget things and like move on, and like it makes room for new memories. But like it's just so hard to let go of the past, I feel like, because when you think about it, like the past makes up more of your life than your future right now, because like your future is happening right now, right? You're in the present, your future's happening. Like the past is what you can like see that already happened, and you know what goes down because it's already happened. And like the future's like really hard to determine, and you can't feel confident in your future, but you can feel confident in what you know about the past already, because it's already happened to you. Even if you kind of can't like recollect everything, and you can't remember certain aspects of like your childhood or like your past or whatever, you can still what do you call it? Like you can still have confidence in some of the memories that you have, and I feel like that's a big thing of like why nostalgia is like important to people. It's like the one thing that they're confident in because it's already happened to them. Like yeah. Anything else you want to add, or like any side comments or anything? Any shout outs for like the 10 people listening?
Let me think. All right.
Does anybody owe you money? You could call them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't want to get sued.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add on what he just said, but I guess we can like spin around another subtopic regarding nostalgia.
We
I'd s-
could.
I,
We're at 1 hour.
mm-hmm.
It's 9:54. I don't know what time you have to go.
We can go like around 10. So yeah, there's a few more minutes.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, okay, we go slightly off topic, and I'll probably do another full episode on this, and that'll be once I have the script done. But like the short film that we're working on,
Yeah.
and I have a witness here, and he can say, I'm working on a short film. I'm still working on the script. It's hard to write a script and, buy equipment and stuff when you're poor and you only work 16 to 20 hours a week. So I made sure to do the podcast stuff first so now I can have people on here. And now I'm moving on to the short film stuff. And nostalgia plays a big factor in the script that I'm writing. So it's like mainly kind of points from my personal life and like how I viewed them, and then just rewritten slightly, like just to make it entertaining, and also like people's privacy and stuff, of course, names and stuff, and there is like I've always wanted to make something, ever since I was little, and like finally being able to do this kind of feels like I'm not letting down my little like 10 to 13-year-old self. um but nostalgia is going to be a big factor in that. You guys could like check out updates on like the Instagram or threads, just letting you know. And it just is, it's just like a big factor. It's supposed to be like this like coming of age kind of nostalgia trip a little bit. And I feel like it'll be a bonding moment for like a lot of us, like since a lot of our friends are like trying to help me make this, and it'll be like nostalgic to us in the future. Like we'll be like 80 or something sitting on the porch and like, dang, y'all remember when we made that short film? Like we were poor and like we were like, oh, let's make a short film. Like why not? That's not gonna go
Yeah.
horribly wrong. Like but like it's like the other aspect of nostalgia is like to try to create the memories now so you have them in the future. And I think that's one of the big issues we have, where we don't live in the present, and we maybe live in the past too much, and we don't make new memories to then feel nostalgic over it in the future. So like, are you doing anything right now making memories to that will be nostalgic in the future? Because I feel like I'm not. Like the only things I can think of is like maybe this podcast and like the short film, and like maybe a couple of the occasions that we go out as buddies and like with the rest of the group.
Yeah, I'd say I'm in the same boat. Not really, and I'm glad you brought that up too, since I'd like to go back a little bit on the COVID thing, and I feel like I should defend myself a little bit. Uh, okay, I like to say part of the reason why COVID was miserable for me was that I'm neither an outrovert nor an introvert. Really, I'm not very talkative. Yeah, I'm not very sociable, but I'd say I definitely receded into myself a lot during the quarantine, and it doesn't help. I don't exactly have the best home life, so that kind of caused me to lose a lot of confidence within myself and a lot of motivation within myself, and affected my schoolwork quite a bit, which also depressed me. And so that kind of so not only were those first 2 years just a blur, it derailed me for the next two also for quite a long time. And honestly, now I still don't feel very on my feet really. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm currently not really making my own memories right now. I still have a lot of what's the term? Still have a lot of baggage to clear out before I can do that. But I'm, still willing to help out my friend here regarding the short film, since that sounds like a fun project to be a part of, and it's at least something to get me out of the house.
We're making a movie, guys. It's
Yeah,
fun. It's supposed to be fun.
yeah,
Uh, on that same note of like the COVID stuff, I think I had the opposite effect. I gained so much confidence during COVID. I was working out. I was like, writing because I was like, oh, I'm gonna finally publish my book and do that. And I still haven't published the book. I gained all the weight back, and that all happened post COVID, and that's what really destroyed me, the post COVID era stuff. So like, let's say like 2022, 2023, everything just fucking fell off, derailed. I didn't do anything in college. I had no parties or like hung out with friends really there.
yeah. I missed out on the college.
I
experience
missed out
really.
on a lot of that stuff. I think one of the big reasons is I commuted instead of living on campus. Um, and then I just didn't put myself out there because I lacked the confidence, the self confidence to like do that stuff. And I don't know. I just feel like uh, that era wasn't very nostalgic for me. But
Yeah,
like the COVID stuff, the during COVID, not post COVID, the during COVID stuff, that was a little bit more nostalgic because I felt like I was finally finding myself, and then now I'm here, trying to find myself again. I feel like I'm slowly getting there. I'll get there eventually.
yeah. To add on to that, I'm also a bit bummed that I kind of missed out on the college experience. Really missed out on talking to a lot of people my age, in regards to being in well, that area obviously. And what was I gonna say? Uh, Lost my train of thought. I also lost interest in a lot of things during that time. I was not happy in the slightest during that time. And damn, I really forgot where I was gonna go with this. You can go back to your
I
thing.
mean, I lost a lot of my interests too, like a lot of my hobbies and stuff. And then some of them just died. Like I don't really play video games anymore. I used to be pretty into fitness and stuff. I would go on runs. I was like trying to practice for a marathon, for a 5K, which is like pretty short. But then I was like, oh, I'll do like a you know I'll try to do like a what do you call it? Like a longer stretch on my own. Like I want to be able to run like 15K on my own. Like do like fucking do the Iron Man or something in the future. I was like, dang, that's gonna be me. And then it all just fell apart. Part of it was my knee injury, and the like I just lost a lot of my hobbies. I was just like, whatever. Like it's dead to me. And now I have new ones. Like I have the photography. Uh, I still have Yu-Gi-Oh. That's always gonna stay with me. The podcast and like video and like content creation stuff I'm trying to get into. And then like one of the big ones, and this one's it puts a big dent in my pocket, but I'm super into board games. So like my friend can see them, but like
Yeah.
there's a bunch of board games in my room right now, and I'm actually supposed to be doing a remodel soon, and I'm gonna reorganize everything so you could see the other board games that are hidden over here somewhere on my side. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like COVID messed us up.
Yeah, it's also hard to accept how much time I've really lost. Like I've always thought I've got plenty of time to fix myself. Then 4 years passed, and I'm
And
like,
we're in our 20s already.
and yeah, I feel like I missed out on a lot of my young adulthood.
It feels like
And
we should have our shit together now.
yes,
Like,
yeah,
but like a lot of people say like, "Oh no, like it's very conflicting." It's like you're in your 20s, you should have fun, like, go experience the world, this and that. And other people are like, "Nah, dude, you got to grind and like prepare yourself cuz like when your 30s come, like you got to be ready or else like you're fucked for the rest of your life." Pretty much.
I also will put out there I do feel a bit emotional. I feel a bit mentally and emotionally stunted. Uh, I'm 22 right now, so but I don't feel like it
Oh,
honestly.
we're fucked, dude.
And what was I gonna say?
I still feel like I'm 18. Like I
Yeah.
still feel like I'm in high school
Another
sometimes.
thing. Another thing. I know we can't control the world, but good God, did that COVID thing have to happen right when we turned 18?
I know that really messed
right,
us up.
right during our young adulthood. Like, well, I know I can't control. I couldn't control that, obviously, but still, it's just one of the things that kind of pisses me off. Still, you know.
Yeah. I
Like-
mean, I didn't get my license till 20 because of COVID, and I mean they burned down our DMV too. So
What?
well, they didn't burn it down, but like some of it caught fire.
Oh, you're talking about that.
Yeah,
Okay,
the DMV. And then also like I think part of it was because I was trying to learn how to drive stick, and I was like, I'm not gonna get my license till I know how to drive this car. And driving stick is hard. Like, it's pretty hard. But anyway, like, I didn't get my license till 20. Like,
I think 21 for me.
I didn't start dating again till I was 20. Like, I dated a little bit in high school, but it didn't start again till I was 20, because of the COVID stuff. 2021, something like that. I still feel like I'm pretty young, like, mentally. That might also just be the ADHD. And there's a couple other things. Like, I feel like I did lose time. Like, I probably could have used my time during COVID a little bit better. Post-COVID as well, I could have probably used a little bit better. And like the college stuff, I feel like I wasted 4 years of my life there because, like, I did get my degree and everything, but I feel like I could have experienced more there. Like, I could have connected with more people, taken more interesting classes and stuff. Had a little bit more fun in general, and I feel like the COVID stuff just really brought me down so much that I didn't want to be a part of any of that.
It also didn't help. I didn't have much self-confidence to begin with.
Yeah, that's me too. High school was kind of tough.
Yeah.
I feel like in the future though, we're gonna look back at this and we're gonna be like, dang, dude, you remember those days? And we'll be nostalgic about it.
Yeah.
Like, we're nostalgic like over our like teenage years and like childhood, and then once we're like 30, 40, we're gonna be like, oh man, you remember when we were in our 20s? So like, it's just like this endless cycle of feeling nostalgic, like, about the past. Like, when we're 60, we'll be nostalgic about when we were 40. When we're 80, we're gonna be like, dang, you remember when we were 60 and we did that one thing? Like, it's just like this continuous cycle that we're gonna keep going through.
Yeah, it's also a bit hard to see my siblings grow up a bit, since I haven't really done it much during then, and to know my sister's almost, well, she's 16 now, but she's gonna be 18 in like 2 years. That's kind of hard to accept. Also, I love my siblings, so seeing them grow up itself is pretty hard. But knowing that I haven't really done much with myself during that time, not really being much of a role model to them like my parents wanted me to, it's kind of hard to accept.
Oof, I have a whole episode on that where I had a breakdown. I'm sorry for all of you that had to listen to that. I had a breakdown on mic, and like I talked about all that.
I also feel like I unintentionally burned down quite a few bridges when I receded into myself during that
Same.
time. I feel like I probably would have stayed in touch with a lot more people if I just had control of myself.
I mean, this, and a lot of our friends know this. I nuked my Instagram and I got rid of it, and I burned so many bridges. And if you're listening, sorry and not sorry at the same time. There's some of you that I really didn't want to talk to anymore, and there's some of you that I really miss, like, hang out with you. But like, it's just part of life, and like, I could still be nostalgic over the days that we used to hang out and stuff. But I feel like most of them have moved on, and
yeah,
for the most part, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's necessary for me to be part of their life anymore. Sometimes you just gotta move on and just forget about it.
even now, I still have that problem. I made one friend during college, during one of my sporadic classes I was taking, and he's quite a bit older than me. He was 29 when I met him, and I was like 20, 21. It's been almost a year since I talked to him, and that's my fault, since I didn't reach out to him I haven't reached out to him in a while. When he's like offered to like play games with me and stuff. So yeah, that's the thing.
It just happens sometimes.
Which bums me out because he was a really cool guy. And if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry. I'll probably hit you up later, but sorry for that time. My fault completely.
It just happens, man. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of us have disconnected in ways. But anyway, it is 10:07.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if you want to call it here.
Yeah, we should call it now.
All right, so I think that's gonna do it for this podcast episode. Any closing thoughts that you want to say, or just like say goodbye to everybody listening? This is your first time on here, so like,
Well, next global pandemic, don't fall into yourself.
oh my gosh.
And also read Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, please.
Yes. I feel like we might do another episode in the future. I like to do 2 a month, so I still need to do another one,
Mhm.
probably tomorrow or next week. I'll see who I have on. But anyway, with that being said, Make sure to rate and follow the podcast. You could follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and you could also follow the page, the Instagram page or the Threads page for the channel. And with that being said, I think I'll leave the episode here. I'll see you guys next time. And, let me know in the comments, because that's a new thing on Spotify where you can comment below the podcast episodes. Make sure to let me know what you think of the new audio and whether or not it needs to be tweaked. Just any, ideas in general, any critiques in general, just let me know. So I'll leave the episode here, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right, I'll see you next time. Well, next time I'm on.
Yeah. All right, bye, guys.
See ya.